All right, so the math facts. We're going to focus on the 3s, the 4s, and the 5s. If you look at this, it says tips and tricks for the multiplication facts, and it says the yellow ones are the ones that don't have any tricks yet, and you just need to memorize those. So we have not learned tricks for 6s, 7s, or 8s yet. So, and out of all of these multiplication facts here, all of the 3s, all of the 4s, and all of the 5s, we've talked about tricks to work on all of them except for those 3. I'll tell you real quick. The 8s is a little bit of a trick with the 8s, but I don't know if it's helpful or if it's going to be more work than just memorizing the couple facts that you need to. But a trick for 8, just like the trick for 4s, is that, like, for example, if you had to do 4 times 6, we talked about that what you can do is you could do 2 times 6, which is 12, and then you can double it. So 12 doubled is 24. And the reason why that works is because 4 is the same as 2 times 2. So, and multiplication is commutative. That means it doesn't matter which order we do it in. So if we do 2 times 6, which is 12, and then we double it again, that's 24. So the trick for the 8s that you might find helpful is that just like 4, you can do times 2 and then double it. Well, 8 is the same as 2 times 4, which is the same as 2 times 2 times 2. So the prime factorization for 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. So if we had to do something like 6 times 8, we could also do 6 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8. That's the same as 6 times 8. So 6 times 2 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 2 is 48. So for the 8s, think of the 4 trick, but then just double it. So you would do times 2 and then double it, and that would be times 4, and then double it again. That would be times 8. And if you think of that pattern, what do you think you do for times 16? You do times 2 and then double it. That's times 4. Double it again, times 8. Double it again, it's 16. All right. So let's focus on these ones here. So the trick for 3s, well, actually, we'll start with the 0s. So 3 times 0, the trick for 0s, any number times 0 is always 0. So we know anytime we see anything times 0, the answer is always 0. So see how there's a 3 down here and a 0 up here? This box stands for 3 times 0, and the answer is 0. This box stands for 4 times 0. And the answer is 0. This one stands for 5 times 0. So 5 times 0 is 0. So to look at this, you just say what's on the top and what's on the side, and you multiply those two numbers. You multiply the top number and the side number. Let's look at the next set. All right, so for this one, 1 times any number is always that number. So here we have 3. We're in the 3 row, and then in the 1 column. So 3 times 1, that's going to be 3. Here, this is 4 times 1, that's 4, and 5 times 1 is 5. All right, 2s. 2s are usually pretty easy. Remember, we just have to double the number. So 3 times 2, that means 3 doubled, and that's 6. 4 doubled is 8, and 5 doubled is 10. All right, for the 3s don't have their own trick that we learned, but we can use the other tricks. So for 3 times 3, this one is actually, I'm going to do the square numbers in bright orange. 3 times 3, this is a square number, 3 times 3, because we're multiplying the same number times itself, and that's 9. And usually with square numbers, people just remember them. They tend to remember them a little easier. 4 times 4, that's also another square, that's 16. And 5 times 5 is another square, that's 25. So these ones, we don't have a trick for them, but because they're squares, people usually kind of just remember them. And if you don't remember it, you can also use your 4s trick and your 5s trick, and we'll talk about those in a minute. All right, so for this spot is 4 times 3, because 4 is on the side, and 3 is on the top. So 4 times 3. So remember, the trick for 4s is we're going to say 2 times 3, and then we're going to double it. And the reason why we can do that is because 2 times 2 is 4. So the trick for 4s is you multiply the number times 2, so it's 6, and then double it, or multiply 6 times 2 is 12. So we have 6 times 2, which is 12. Here we have 5 times 3, and we'll use the trick for 5s. I want to get a different color that I haven't used yet. So we'll do 5 times 3. So the trick for 5s is that if you're multiplying a number times 5, like 3 times 5, this is odd, so we know the last digit is going to be a 5. If we're multiplying 3 times 6, 6 is even, so we know that the last digit is going to be a 0. So if you're multiplying, 5 times 6. So if you're multiplying an even number by 5, you know it ends in a 0. An odd number by 5, it ends in a 5. And we learned a couple of tricks for multiplying by 5s. If you are doing 5 times 6, we said, well, each of these 6s is actually 2 3s. So we could say that this is the same as 10 times 3. So when we have to multiply by 5 and we're multiplying by an even number, we can change it to tens instead. So we change the 5 into a 10, we double the 5, and we cut the 6 in half. We turn the 6 into 3. 10 times 3 is 30. Another example, if you're doing 5 times 8, well, let's do half of this. This is the same as 10 times 4, which is 40. 5 times, should we do 6, 8, 10, 5 times 4? We could do half of this is 2, so the answer is going to be 20. 5 times 8, half of this is 4, the answer is 40. 5 times 6, half of this is 3, the answer is 30. So remember, when you're multiplying by 5, you can cut the other number in half and multiply it by 10. So let's use that trick for the problem that we're looking at down below. So for 5 times 3, we know it's odd, so the last digit is going to be a 5. And it's not an even one, so we can't do the even one. The trick for the odds, so let me just do one more thing here. 5 times 7, this is odd, so we can't do that 10 trick. But this means 5 groups of 7. If I had 5 times 6, that means I have 5 groups of 6. 6 groups of 5, and then I can add one more 5. Now I still have 7 5s because I have 6 of them and then another one, so I still have 7. So if you have an odd number, bump this down 1. 5 times 6 plus 5, and now you can use that 10 trick. Half of 6 is 3, so this is 30 plus 5, and that's 35. All right, this one, 3 times 4. So we can use our 4s trick. For 3 times 4, we could think 3 times 2, we're going to double it and then double it again. So 6 times 2 is 12. 5 times 4. So we could use our 4 trick or our 5 trick. Because it's even and I think that trick's pretty easy, I'm going to use the 5 trick. So for 5 times 4, I'm going to cut this in half and it's 2, so this is 20. No, I'm just going to go ahead and do all of these. So the even one, this one is 5 times 6. That's even. Half of this is 3, that's 30. 5 times 8. Half of this is 4, that's 40. 5 times 10. Well, we know anything times a 10 is got a 0 at the end, that's 50. And then for 5 times 12. So for this one, I'm going to teach you the 12s one. So for this one, for 12, we're going to think of the 12. That's the same as 10 plus 2. So what we can do is we can think of whatever number times 10 and then add it to that same number times 2. So down here, let's see what that looks like. So for 5 times 12, we're going to think 5 times 10 plus 5 times 2. So this is 50, and 5 times 2 is 10. So 50 plus 10 is 60. So we're multiplying the 5 times the 10 part, and then times the 2 part, and then adding those together. All right, let's go back to we'll go to these odd ones now. So for 5 times 7, the trick that we can use, we could bump this down one, and we can say that's 5 times 6. and then we're going to add another 5 to it. And now this is a 5 times an even, so half of that is 3, so that's 30 plus 5, so it's 35. For this one, 5 times 9, that's odd. Let's bump this down one. Let's do 5 times 8, but we still have to take care of the other 5, so we're going to add in one more 5. Now we're doing 5 times an even, so I can do half of 8 is 4, so this is 40 plus 5, so this is 45. And then 5 times 11, the 11 trick is for the numbers 1 through 10. Well, actually for 1 through 9, anytime you're multiplying by 11, you just have to, it's that number twice. So let's look at what I mean by that. I think you already know this anyway, but for this one, like 5 times 11, it's going to just be 55. So when you're multiplying by 11s, if you're doing any of the digits 1 through 11, it's just that number you're multiplying in both places, and it's 2 place values. All right, let's go back to the 5s over here. So this one, 3 times 5. So remember the trick for the 5s is if this is odd, I bump it down 1, so I can do 2 times 5, and then I just have to add another 5. So this is going to be 10 plus 5, which is 15. And then for 4 times 5, I can change it to tens, so half of this is 2. This is the same as 2 times 10, which is 20. All right, 6s. This one over here, we don't have a trick that we've learned for this one. So for 3 times 6, this is just one of those ones that you'll have to memorize. So 3 times 6 is 18. You could kind of like play with things. Trying to think if this is an easy. You could turn it into a 5, but then it's just you're gonna have to start doing like a lot of different things to try to work this out. So since there's just so few here that we haven't learned yet, I would probably just memorize these ones. So 3 times 6 is 18. The next one, 4 times 6. Okay, so remember when we're multiplying by 4s, we can do that trick where we do 2 times 6 and then we double it. So we have 12 times 2, which is 24. Now for 7s, 7 times 3, again, that's one that we don't have a trick that we're learned. So 3 times 7, that's just 21. We have to remember that. 3 times 7 is 21. And the next one is 4 times 7. So 4 times 7. Okay, remember the trick. We're going to do 2 times 7 and then double it. So it's 14 times 2, which is 28. All right, next one, the 8s. We have to do 3 times 8. So you could do 3 times 2 is 6, double it is 12, double it again, and that's 24. So you have to do times 2 and then double it twice. Or just remember 3 times 8 is 24. So those are only 3 that we don't have easy tricks for. 8 times 4, or 4 times 8. So remember we can do 2 times 8 and then double it. So 16 times 2, which is 32. All right, so the 9s, for this trick, for the 9s, we have 2 digits. And we know, for example, let's do this. If we're doing 9 times 5, I know that the first digit is going to be a 4. Because if we think about it, 9 times 10, that's going to be 90, right? So if we have, or let's 10 times 5 is 50. Okay, so 10 times 5 would be 50, but we don't have 10 of them. We have 9 of them, so we're going to be in the 40s. So anytime you're multiplying 9 by one of the digits, 1 through 9, it's always going to be 1 less. So the first digit is 4, and then when we add up these two numbers, they always have to equal 9. So if I want to figure out the second number, I just have to do 9 take away and whatever I wrote here. So 9 take away 4 is 5. So 45 is my answer. Let's do another one. 9 times 6, my first digit is going to be a 5, and then 9 take away 5 is 4. 9 times 8 the first digit is going to be a 7 because it's one less. And then 9 take away 7 is 2. And that's just a trick. It just works because when we add up the two numbers, we get 9. So 9 times 4. I know the first digit has to be 3. Now I do 9 take away 3, which is 6. And if we add these both together, 6 plus 3 is 9. 2 plus 7 is 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. 0 plus 9 is 9. So anytime you're multiplying 9 by one of those numbers, the sum is going to equal 9. All right, so let's apply that down here. So down here, we have to do 3 times 9. The first digit is going to be one less, so it's a 2. And now I have to think, well, 9 take away 2 is 7. For this one, 4 times 9. First digit is going to be a 3. And then 9 take away 3 is 6. And then down here, 5 times 9. I could apply, I did the 5 trick down there, but I could also do, well, the first digit is going to be a 4, and then 9 take away 4 is 5, so it's 45. So whatever one's easiest for you. All right, so for the 10s, they always end in a 0. So for 3 times 10, it's 30. 4 times 10 is 40. 5 times 10 is 50. For the 11s, it was any number. For 11, oh, you know, I did like green. For 11, remember, it's any number. So if we did like 3 times 11, it's going to be 33. It's whatever you're multiplying it by, and it's going to be both of those places for the numbers 1 through 9. So here, 3 times 11, 33. 4 times 11, 44. And last, with these 12s, 3 times 12, well, that's 3 times 10, plus 3 times 2, so 30 plus 6, 36. 4 times 12, you can think 4 times 10, plus 4 times 2, so 40 plus 8, which is 48. All right, so I'm just going to go through it really quick now. We're going to go through it one more time, and I'm not going to switch the colors every time. I just want to see if you can think quick with these, okay? This one is 3 times 0, 0. 4 times 0, 0. 5 times 0, 0. 3 times 1, 3. 4 times 1, 4. 5 times 1, 5. All right, 2s, now we're just doubling. So 3 times 2, 6. 4 times 2, 8. 5 times 2, 10. All right, 3s. Here we have 3 times 3, and that's a square. 3 times 3 is 9. Here we have 4 times 3. So we can think 2 times 3 is 6, times 2 is 12. So we do times 2 and double it. 5 times 3. Well, if I go one less, 5 times 2 is 10, and then add another 5, that's 15. All right, now we're in the 4s. So the trick I have is I can do times 2 and double it. So 3 times 4, well, 3 times 2 is 6, and double it is 12. 4 times 4, this is a square, so we might know it just because it's 4 times 4, and it's one of those easier ones to stick. But if not, 2 times 4 is 8, times 2 is 16. And then 5 times 4, well, we could do 2 times 5 is 10, and then times 2 is 20. Or I could say, well, I'm multiplying 5 times an even number, so half of 4 is 2, so it's 20. All right, this one, 3 times 5. So I could do 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 more is 15. 4 times 5, I'm going to use that multiplying 5 by an even, so it's 20, because I take half of the 4. And then 5 times 5, this is a perfect square, so that's 25. All right, now 3 times 6, this is one of those ones that we just have to memorize. 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12, double it is 24. 5 times 6. 5 times an even, half of 6 is 3, so it's 30. 3 times 7, this is one of those ones we're just going to work on memorizing. That's 21. 4 times 7. 2 times 7 is 14, double it is 28. 5 times 7. Well, this is odd, so let's do 5 times 6, which is 30. And the reason why I knew that is because half of 6 is 3, and that's 30, and then add another 5, so it's 35. And if you're not sure, you can also be like, okay, 5 times an odd, my last digit is supposed to be odd. It's supposed to be a 5. All right, 3 times 8. This is 24. Again, one of those ones we just have to memorize. 4 times 8. So 2 times 8 is 16, times 2 is 32. And then 5 times 8. We have 5 times an even number, so half of 8 is 4, so this is 40. Right. 3 times 9. First digit is going to be a 2 because it's 1 less. And then I have to do 9 take away 2, and that's 7. 4 times 9. First digit is going to be a 3, and then 9 take away 3 is 6. 5 times 9. First digit is going to be a 4, and then 9 take away 4 is 5. Tens are, we got these really easy. 3 times 10 is 30. 4 times 10 is 40. 5 times 10 is 50. 11s, 3 times 11 is 33. 4 times 11 is 44. And 5 times 11 is 55. And then for 12s, 3 times 12, we have 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 2 is 6, 36. 4 times 12. 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times 2 is 8, 48. 5 times 12. 5 times 10 is 50. 5 times 2 is 10. That's going to be 60. All right, so if you would like to practice these, you can, I'm going to give you a blank one, just like the one we just filled in. Let me pull it up again. This whole area down here, this is the multiplication chart. Okay, and the number on the top and the number on the side, those are the ones you multiply for each square. And the little tricks are listed above. All right, so you can use this, use the sheet, use the computer site where you multiply to practice there, and you can use your math fact triangles.